Yeah, hello. I'm Ben Mannion, director and co-owner of Hewett Recruitment. So Hewett are a multidisciplined B Corp certified recruitment agency covering predominantly the three counties, so Herefordshire, Worcestershire, Gloucestershire, and we cover IT, engineering, commercial and finance positions, as well as having an industrial blue collar temp desk. We've been established for 43 years now. I've been with the business for around 15 years and recently completed on an MBO with my business partner in November 2021. So just coming up to 2 years ago. And that's me.
Okay, I'm Ian Gerstein. I'm the MD of Mandeville Recruitment. We are a retail, hospitality and sales specialist recruiter. We do right across the board in retail and hospitality. That's on-site management, staff, etc., and also right across head office as well. We also have a very successful trade division that deals with things like builders, merchants, that type of area. And in sales, we deal mainly logistics, FMCG, and SaaS sales recruitment, everything from sales director downward. The business has been going, I can't remember how many years, 40 odd years or so. I've been with it for about 12 years. We were at that time part of Randstad, which I'm sure most of you know is one of the world's largest recruitment businesses, and we did an MBO about 10 years ago. We are, I would say, small to medium, about 12 of us in the business. And yeah, that pretty much identifies us as we are now. Just before I was in recruitment, I was in fashion and I ran my own brand for about 10 years. So recruitment seems simple after that.
I know where to come for some sartorial tips then. Kicking off then with the first kind of piece, which was around what changes we've seen across the world of recruitment over the last 12 to 18 months. Ian, any thoughts on that? What do you think you've experienced in your sector? Because it's very different to mine in many respects.
Yeah,
actually, so it'd be interesting to see where the differences are.
For us, I made a note of a few things. One is that when we came out of the pandemic, it was, oh yeah, we'll take people on, they can work remote. Don't matter 5 days, especially in the sales side of things, they can work 5 days a week from home. And that's completely out the window, I think, in the last 12 months. For sales roles and head office roles, yes, hybrid, definitely. Probably 3 days a week is pretty standard. But I think business completely remote just doesn't work. And though I think the candidates are still hoping, some of them, that it does, but yeah, I think that's been the biggest change is, people ringing, have you got any remote roles? No, absolutely none whatsoever. I don't think we have one on our books at the moment. How about yourself?
I mean, just picking up on that point, I think we've seen something very similar because it swung so much the other way. As you say, it was very much everything's remote. We're all working from home. And it was inevitably going to have to kind of come back to a little bit more of a balanced, place in the middle. And I think what maybe a lot of people forgot was that not everybody wanted remote as well. Yeah. So they were wondering why they weren't recruiting successfully. It's like, well, because not everybody wants to sit at home working. They'd actually like to be in an office. So I think we did a lot of work with our clients trying to educate them on actually whatever your approach to hybrid or remote working is, just be really clear about it so you're attracting the right type of people. Because otherwise you're going to end up, like you just said, that person who thinks, oh, I know they say it's in the office, but I'll just chance my arm, and if they really want me, they'll tell me I can work from home. They'll get right through the process, and then right at the end, oh, can I be at home, please, or vice versa. And I think when I was looking at that question about what's changed, one of the big things I think when I look at our organisation is actually the expectations of recruitment consultants have changed, particularly in, I'd say, the last 6 to 12 months. In the sense that, 18 months ago, as we kind of had that post-pandemic boom, there were so many roles out there, so few candidates out there. Businesses were kind of bashing down your door to give you jobs, etc. And most of your consultants were actually kind of 180 like services. And then now we're in a very different marketplace where people are either trying to do it themselves to cut costs, or the market's naturally kind of softened a little bit. And so actually the expectations of consultants has changed, and they're having to go out there and farm a little bit themselves. And it's really interesting, in terms of who's managing to kind of do that, and who kind of it's kind of caught out a little bit, because they're just not used to having to do that at all.
No, well, yeah. If you've you would have lived through or worked through the crash in whatever it was, 2008, 2009.
I was there.
And survived.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as that.
No.
But if you honed your skills during that time, then hopefully as managers we're able to impart what you've got to do and build the base. Because I came into recruitment about a year before that happened, I would say I'm almost like mentally scarred, because I'm always completely paranoid about having to work on. So even when, as you say, a year and a half ago, you could virtually open your door and in will come a few jobs. I was like, you've got to keep the contacts going. You've got to keep the relationships going. You work hard. Just imagine if all these jobs disappeared tomorrow, what would you do? And I am very paranoid in that area, because, as I say, I joined recruitment. It wasn't easy to get jobs on. So I think that if you have that approach, it's all about relationships. It's
100%.
Is that keeping them going? I do feel sorry, maybe the wrong word. If you're a young recruiter coming into the market and you're told you've got to get new business, you've got to be a new business hunter. I mean, going about it is completely different to how we would have done it 10 years ago. I mean, you don't get a list of phone. I mean, unless your industry is different to ours, but trying to get a list of phone numbers and bombing your way through those just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it's half the phone numbers, people's personal mobiles, and they don't pick them up unless they particularly want to anyway. So, it is different. I think one of the questions there was about marketing, sort of coming off that a bit. But, I think that side of things, how you market your business, and we're slow to do it. I'm not saying we're doing it great, but I think how you market your business in different ways to how you would have done in the past is really important. I don't think we've quite found the answer yet, but that's something I think that all recruitment businesses and other businesses as well have got to consider. The world has changed a lot, Ben, in the last year.
I mean, if I skip on very briefly onto that marketing piece, and that question, it's not a load of fluff. It's so important nowadays. It's so vital. I mean, we've got a marketing manager. We hired her as a marketing exec back in, I think she's been with us 5 years now, and she's absolutely brilliant. She understands recruitment, and she's fantastic at marketing because she's kind of grown with us as an organisation, and it adds so much to us. And her working closely with the consultants. And interestingly, yesterday she was having a meeting with a few of the guys who are trying to grow desks, because there's that realisation it isn't, as you said, just about hitting the phones. It's about the kind of complete package as well, and having that kind of that additional content and substance below, just the phone call. And going back to your point about, yes, it's changed. We've got quite a really nice blend of people. We've got people who've been with us 15, 16 years, and we've got others that have been with us 5 months. And so their approach to business development is so different, but actually it's working quite nicely. So some of them, it's just that, as you say, it's relationship building, or in their case, maintaining relationships, and just that's actually what ends up kind of getting that repeat business. And for others, it's a bit more old school, having to get on the phones and really do the numbers, so to speak. But with the marketing help, they're starting to kind of see the rewards of that now as well.
Would you say that when you're using that marketing manager, is that in place maybe of someone who you might have purely had on business development in the past, and instead of that?
No, so we've got a business development manager as well, who is kind of doing business development all day, every day, as well as the consultants. I think the way we kind of think about it is that if our marketing efforts are the kind of softer touch, kind of general brand awareness, making sure people know our name and who we are, etc., the business development person is the kind of more blunt instrument that actually picks up the phone, follows up on some of those calls to action, and tries to elicit a response from it. Because you'll know, Ian, having been in recruitment for 10 plus years, you can make people aware of what it is you do, but actually sometimes they need that extra nudge to really kind of come to you with an opportunity. And we're an interesting one because we've been around for a while and we cover several different disciplines. We get sometimes a bit pigeonholed by clients. So if someone came to us for industrial temps, then they'll kind of think that's all we do. And so we have to really kind of educate and say, no, it's not just that. We also do, you've got an IT role, we can help with that. Just we've got specialist consultants who do that. It's not going to be the same person that did your industrial recruitment. It's going to be someone completely different. And I think that's where marketing and sales kind of dovetail really nicely. Marketing getting that presence out there. And yeah, as I say, we've had a BD manager now. It's the first one we've ever had for, I think that's coming up for 2 years, actually. We hired him just after we completed on the MBO, I believe. And again, he's been a great addition to the team because it just means that you always know there's that constant activity going on of people being spoken to and made aware of your business, etc., which at times like this, when the market is a bit tighter, is really, really valuable.
And the other thing I made a note of for this was where wages are going. And how you find, generally we would say that wages are definitely up there. You see the data on news, but it doesn't always feed through. The odd thing we have probably retail is you can't help but feeling it's absolutely justified and it should have happened quite a long time ago. And I don't say what you're working, but it's something that I think that the businesses are going to have to work their way around. It's here to stay, in my view. But
no, 100%. And I was literally looking at this last week, and our average fee, whilst the average percentage fee hasn't really moved massively over the last 12 months, our average actual placement fee in pounds is up by nearly £1,000. I think it's like between £800 and £900, and that's literally because the salaries are higher.
Yeah.
So, that is what it is, and that's across all. That's combining all the different sectors that we recruit into. So from accounts assistants through to solutions architects on the IT side, that is definitely there. I think the only thing I feel we might see about that, and we're kind of starting to look at what the future might look like here, is that there's been so much kind of wage inflation, and some of it almost a little bit artificial from people kind of taking counter offers, and the desperate employer saying, I'll pay you an extra 10,000, and them saying, there's not a bottomless pit. So that £10,000 was probably that person's pay rise for the next 5 or 6 years. It's not suddenly like they're going to get another 5 or 6% on that every year. So it would be interesting to see how that plays out moving forwards. When
certain areas that we're seeing, and I won't say exactly what they are, but there was quite a lot of over recruiting, I think, in business. Thought, this boom is going to continue. We need to take loads of people on in different areas, and they did pay overinflated salaries. And what we are now seeing is a bit of last in, first out. The growth didn't come through like we expected. The investment hasn't come in like we expected. So sorry, we're letting you go. And those tend to be the ones who were, given that extra special pay rise. I think where there's definitely been a need, we at the bottom end, if you like, we retail assistant managers, sales associates, we do luxury sales associates and things like that. Who, when you think minimum wage is now going up to £11 an hour, I think it is. We're not even above that in some cases. And if you want your business to be an ambassador for the brand, if you want people to give the best customer service when you walk the store, then our view has always been you've got to pay for it. So I think some of that is justified, but in the middle sector and the upper sector, definitely a slowdown. I think it's got to
be. Have you seen in retail, because obviously at the kind of, for want of a better description, base level of retail, I'm assuming quite a lot of the people on the shop floor literally are paid at national living wage levels. Do you see that kind of pressure when the national living wage is increased by, I think it was 9.6% last year? Do you see that pressure come through in the higher salaried roles that you're recruiting for as well? Does it kind of ratchet up?
Yeah, it has to, because if you're £11 an hour is what, it's £440 a week, it's £22,000 a year. And if you're only paying your assistant manager or your supervisor 23, 24, which some of the schools would be, then even if it's, you've got to create a bigger gap between the sales associates and the management. Otherwise, what's the point of being the management to some extent?
Yeah, sure.
And retail's always been underpaid. So, there is I think the mentality is basically changing from, or moving away from just put the body on the shop floor to put somebody who can actually proactively do stuff. You may need less of them, but pay them more to do a better job.
Yeah.
And that, fits in with what we like to recruit for. I mean, we don't do the big high street chains and things like that, so they may be different. But when you're in the sort of premium to luxury, you've got to go down that route, really.
Yeah. And other than the salary piece, anything else that you think you kind of see on the horizon over the next kind of 12 to 18 months that whether it be industry specific to you or just recruitment in general?
I think that it's as I said, there's been this over recruitment. So I suppose what happens next is very economic. I mean, if you see the figures come out, there's still 900 and something thousand vacancies. Exactly where they are. I presume a lot are in the care services, the National Health Service and things like that. But, there's still an awful lot of vacancies. There's still, I don't know how you're finding it, but if we have, an interesting role with a particular skill sets, particularly around head office or sales or whatever, there's a real shortage of candidates. I mean, every
100%.
We are getting interviewed at the moment on the sales side. They've got 2-3 offers on the table almost every time. So there's no, great glut of candidates coming through, even though the economy is slowed down. So you've got a sort of slowing economy. You've got a lack of good candidates and companies who are definitely nervous about investing in future growth.
Yeah.
Now, is it stay like that? I think it's as bad as it's going to be. I'm always a half glass full anyway. But I mean, in your area, do you see? I mean, I know you've got IT there, obviously been doing pretty well. But the other sectors, how do they see the future going?
Yeah, I think very similar actually to what you've just said is that there's still a reasonable level of demand. And obviously, if you look at as you said, the kind of headline figures, the number of vacancies in the UK is still very high. I think that though, in terms of there being real kind of churn in the market and real movement, people are still too nervous to move, in my opinion. I think they're all sat there with their, sat on their hands, just waiting to see what the next move is. And there's so much uncertainty, not to get too big picture, but in the world full stop, as well as just from an economic perspective. I'm a glass half full guy. I think we probably are at the worst bit of it, because I think what has to happen is businesses get to a point where they can't hold off that investment any longer. They've been holding. They've been sharing that job between a few people, and it gets to the point where no, we're just going to have to hire somebody. And so I think maybe it will be the new year, but we'll see kind of a little bit more movement then. That doesn't necessarily mean though that you're going to get the candidate movement, because people could still just be thinking, I don't want to move. I don't want to be the last one in and the first one out if things take a turn. What I will say is across all of our divisions, so the perm side, the financial, commercial and IT and engineering, is we saw a real slowdown in the summer. We saw a real kind of people just, no, we're not really going to do much about this. We're just going to leave it type thing. But as we had hoped, when we came back from the school holidays, it really did pick up quite quickly. And we're looking now like we're hoping to have like our best perm months of the year by the looks of things over the next few months, because of that kind of real influx of work that came in post the summer holidays. But that in itself tells a story. I think that when you have holidays, when you have Christmas and things, how much people really look to kind of switch off tells a little story about what people are thinking about things and kind of the apathy they have towards the circumstances around them, and if they just think, oh, I'll leave it till the new year. I'll leave it, I don't really need that person, or I do, but it's not gonna kill us if we just leave it another month or so. And so yeah, so hopefully in terms of the future, I think we are starting to see I don't want to say the green shoots, but it does seem like things are kind of starting to pick up on that front.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we normally get an uplift in September, and
Okay.
It didn't quite happen. It wasn't. Right. It didn't come through to the volume we expected. But in the last few weeks, we've seen jobs come in, which is slightly worrying on the retail division, not necessarily just on retail, but on the retail division, if they want people in before Christmas, they're certainly leaving it.
Yeah.
But
do you think that came about from like just the market, or was it your team actually actively picking up more on the kind of business development work to try and have those calls and conversations to generate new roles?
That's always a very interesting question, isn't it? It's sort of, so yeah, I mean, I would say on our sales division and our and trade, the building trade division as well, both of that has come around through much more proactive approach by the consultants going out there and getting business. And in retail, it's been a mixture of that. I think we're all being far more conscious. I mean, we've been banging on about it since February of go out, start building those relationships, try and get new business on. It's a long game, it's not a short game. And obviously some of that has to bear fruit,
Yeah.
And I think, but you can see it more in some rather than others. And I think it's also the nature of the market, but definitely, if it's out there, then well done for them for grabbing it. You can't always tell, because, if you're doing something, going back to the marketing thing, is it a bit of fluff? If you're doing stuff on LinkedIn and you're getting your brand out there and you're putting yourself out, when you get a call in, would that have happened anyway? You can't really tell, can you? So it's
yeah. I think the one thing you can always say there, and I've talked to our guys about this in the past, is that if you are making more phone calls, more things will happen. If you're speaking to people, candidates or clients, doesn't matter. If you are having conversations every day with people, things will start to happen. Yeah. It's just and like you say, you can't always necessarily draw a straight line to say this came from this. It's about that kind of general mass of activity going on, and I think that's why I asked that question. I was just interested to know, because I think for us it's been a bit of both. I think the market probably has picked up a little bit in general, but I think, to be fair, the team have been working really hard to kind of get out there, networking, pick up the phone, etc. And then we've had jobs coming in from businesses that we've never dealt with before, and some of them are saying it's because they saw we were advertising certain roles. So it's like, well, you get and it develops that way. So yeah, it's that, like you say, it's that general activity piece that can really help make the difference at that time. So cool.
Anything, you won't get anything. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. Anything else from a future perspective that you kind of?
Oh, well, just a general wish there was an election in about 2 months' time, but that and that's
no. I think we're going to be waiting a little while for that. While they try and cling on. So, just out of interest, do you see anything in your industry? Because obviously, looking at retail and fashion, and fast fashion being in the spotlight, from a sustainability perspective. And I said, obviously, we're B Corp certified, so kind of done a lot of reading about this now. Do you think that will start to impact your industry at all? Your in terms of the type of people they'll be recruiting for, I suppose the awareness and the knowledge they'll need to have.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with, say, mainly top-end brands. Mm-hmm. So they tend to be more aware of that, and they make more noise about it. And I mean, we have a new brand. Sorry. A new brand that came on this year that is very, into sustainability. They've built the whole product range around it, and it does make it easier to recruit for them, because I suppose younger generation, you want to put it that way, that is it's on their tick list of people they want to work for. I'd say most of the fashion brands we work with are aware of that. Whether I must admit, I wouldn't say I've done enough research to know how serious they are about it, but it's usually on their values and things like that. So I think it comes down sometimes to the investigating and finding out. Yeah, I think it's definitely what more and more so, and hopefully it will be that they have to have that. If they're going to employ the people who are coming through the system now, they're going to take them on board into head office roles, design roles, merchandising roles. That generation want to know that this is a
100%.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we pick up on one or two of the other pieces then? So we talk. I want to talk about, if that's okay, the 4-day week and hybrid working and work from anywhere and all that kind of stuff. I'm intrigued by what your take on this is.
Well, we now do mainly 3 days in the office, 2 days at home.
Yeah.
One of our clients is actually experimenting with a 4-day week at the moment. But we have 2 people who work on a 4-day week, which is around their lifestyle as much as anything else. It's something we agreed with them. And I like the hybrid, not 4-day week. And in fact, it doesn't suit everybody. One of the consultants prefers being in the office. In fact, 2 of our consultants prefer being in the office, and they're in the office every day.
Yeah.
I like it because it saves me having to drive 40 minutes to the office and 40 minutes back. So it's I find it good for me. But if I had a new starter, for instance, which should be the same. If you've got young team members who need training and coaching, you have to be with them every day anyway. So it depends on the business. I think as a consultant, and if you proved yourself, we only allow people to go hybrid once they've hit certain levels of billing. So if they need to do X amount in a quarter to get 1 day from home, and then they need to do a bigger amount to get the 2nd day at home. So it has to be, and they have to have gone through, become a senior consultant, I think, and things like that before we'll do that, because I think it's not something you should take for granted. It is a benefit, and also you've got to feel that they've got the skill sets. One of the reasons why, as recruiters, we work in offices and as teams is because you actually benefit a lot from hearing what the people around you do, not just your managers, but everybody in the office. How did you get around that client? How did you get that candidate in? What did you say? It's just sitting on your own in your lounge. You're not going to get that.
I think that's a really valid point, actually. We've always had people working all sorts of strange hours ever since I started with the business back in 2009. So we've got a number of people at the moment who do 4-day weeks. We've got people on 3-day weeks in different parts of the business. This is in terms of the office piece. In general terms, people are in for 2 or 3 and they're at home for 2 or 3, depending on kind of their personal circumstances and seniority, I suppose, in terms of their how long they've been with the business. But I think it's a really personal thing as well, because like you say, there are some people who just want to be in the office. They'd much prefer to be in the office. So we try not to force it on them either, to say that you've got to be at home. If they want to be in the office working, then absolutely that's great. And it's interesting, we've got a relatively new guy who's been with us like 5-6 months, doing really well, but he's had to have a bit of time at home because he had to have an operation. And he was stuck at home, and he's been chomping at the bit to get back in the office because he wasn't allowed to drive. And he was like, I just need to get back in the office. And I know he's been back in for a few days this week, and he's absolutely loved it and really fed off the energy. And what you just said then about that collaboration piece, I think is so, so important, that when you do get in the office, that you make the absolute most of it. And the other thing we've done to try and sometimes, I suppose to a certain extent, counter anyone ever feeling like they're a little bit kind of separate or disparate, is that we get everybody on a call once a week as a team, the consultants, just sharing how their weeks, they're giving it a bit like they do on the peer group, giving a score for their previous week, no 7s allowed, and then just talking about their plan for the week ahead. so that everyone understands, you know, how people are getting on, and if there's anything they need help with, talk about clients that they might be able to cross-sell into, etc. And people will say, oh, actually, I'm going to jump on that client visit with you if you don't mind, because I want to come and see the other guy there, etc. And that's worked really well as well. I think for me, I think it is, like you say, that importance of realizing that it's different. There's a difference between it being an expectation versus a kind of something that, yeah, absolutely, that's fine as long as this and this are happening. I think that's probably, I completely agree with you there. I wouldn't necessarily say it's getting a bit too easy for recruiters now. I think they've put that in there to try and poke some people into making comments.
Well, I think that, yeah, I don't think that. And anyway, if you're following the data, everything recruiters do is measured depending on how many KPIs you've got, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 17. Yeah. You have your key measurements. If they're not hitting that key measurement, then you have a conversation with them, whether they're at home or not. They know what they've got to do. And I think if they're mature enough, I mean, you know, part of our principle is, you know, we treat everybody like adults. I know how I did, and I wouldn't, you know, if I'm at home, I probably, you know, it's an old cliche, but you probably put more hours in, certainly more intense than when you're in the office. In the office, you do get, you know, in a way, it's the other way around. In the office, you get distracted, you start talking about the football or, you know, what was on TV last night or whatever it may be. And, you know, I'm just sat here on my own. I can't do any of that here. The best I can do is occasionally glance at my fantasy football team or something, you know.
I've just gone down to a 4-day week myself as I go through some medical treatment, just to make sure I've got a day of to kind of properly rest and recuperate. But you're absolutely right. I do sometimes find myself just doing so much more hours in the other days, because it's not like the work's going to disappear. It's still there at the end of the. You know, it still needs to be done, etc. But I think that as long as it's like respected, which I think I'd like to think in our business it is, and I know a lot of people, as you say, do extra stuff because they're at home. You know, it is very, you know, it's much easier to do that kind of extra discretionary effort, like you say, when you're not getting distracted by the water cooler. Cool. And then what was the other one that you mentioned? What was the question that you pointed out?
Covered that. Is there a dearth of good recruitment talent? I don't know how much you're recruiting, but yeah. How do you go about doing your recruitment?
So we've just hired, and that was a good old-fashioned LinkedIn advert, and the guy applied on there. Well, I don't necessarily think there's a dearth of talent out there. I just think that, a bit like when you're recruiting for your own client base, it's about finding the right people. It's about going through the right processes to find the right people and make sure that you make the right choice at the end of it. And even then, you don't always make the right choice, do you? Let's face it. It doesn't always work out, particularly in recruitment, because if you're taking on somebody who's never done it before, quite often, you know, until they try it, you never really know if it's going to work out. We've focused more recently on trying to find people that have got a bit of experience, and that's probably been easier than I thought it was going to be. Actually, I thought we might struggle. Whether or not that we've just kind of struck it lucky with a couple of people, but in the past, I always found that very hard, most likely because people, if they were already in recruitment and they were any good at it, they were probably doing really well. So why would they want to leave where they were? Whereas the two guys that we've taken on more recently with experience, one wanted to get out of doing industrial recruitment into something a bit more challenging like IT, and the business where he was just couldn't offer that. So good for us, because we can. And the other one, he'd made a move into internal recruitment from a recruitment agency and realised very quickly that it wasn't for him. So we kind of, again, right time, right place, snapped him up because he wanted to get back into agency stuff. So that's that little bit of luck, I suppose. But then, you know, going back to your point about the marketing and everything, you know, if you've got your name out there, if you've got your adverts in the right place, etc., then is it luck, or is it actually just the fruits of your labour, so to speak?
And where are you based? Where's your office?
So Worcestershire is where our kind of physical presence is. We've got 2 offices there. and then we cover Herefordshire, Worcestershire, and Gloucestershire, and going into the southwest. We've got a couple of people now actually in Gloucestershire who live in. Those are the two guys I just mentioned actually who live in Gloucester, starting to build our presence more down there. And they use a co-working space down there if they want to get together. Although they just come up to the Worcester office quite a bit together as well, which is what they've been doing this week.
It's not a high population area. It's not like, because I always think it's much easier to find, well, not necessarily much easier, but you're more likely to get someone from a recruitment background who, you know, if you're in London, Manchester, Birmingham, etc. But for us, we're, you know, out in the a small village, sort of 25-minute walk from the nearest train station. I feel like either, you know, it's been on, I don't know, 7-8 years since we last actually got someone in from a recruitment background that has worked. Everyone else would take on out from scratch. Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, you're right. The challenge there is those three counties I've just mentioned are all very similar in terms of being pretty. When you look at them on a map, pretty rural, with a couple of, you know, one or two decent-sized urban areas there. So again, I think it just comes down to making sure that you're exploring all those opportunities that work for you. We seem to flip actually, because like I say, the last couple of people have been people with experience, and then prior to that, we've tended to grow our own. So it does. I think it depends what your business needs at that point in time as well. And because we wanted, you know, we had stuff ready to go and we wanted to build something, I think we felt that actually having some people with a bit of recruitment experience would allow us to do that quicker than having to train up somebody completely from scratch in recruitment as well. But I don't think there is a hard and fast blueprint for what makes a good recruiter. I think it's just you either got it or you haven't to a certain extent.
Really useful, Ben. Yeah, that's going to go down well. That one. Yeah. You say things, personality profiles and stuff like that.
Yeah. So once they've got through, our process is they meet with me and Laura, who's my business partner. They meet with us separately, so that each of us have met the person on a one-to-one basis, and they're definitely bought in that we think that person's, you know, the right fit. And then at that point, they do a psychometric profile. We use DISC. Do you know that one? And we get them in to meet with a selection of the people that they'd be working with. Just to make sure that they obviously think, oh yeah, I'd love to work here. Those are a good bunch of guys, and vice versa, that our team feel they'd be a good fit. And we genuinely listen to our team. You know, we had it just recently. We had somebody get through to that stage and they just said, no, we don't think they're the right fit. No problem. Because we need actually the team to kind of buy into them as well. Because they're the ones who are going to be sat next to them on a day-to-day basis, working with them, working collaboratively. And so they've got to really buy into them saying, yeah, they're a Hewett person. And we really kind of focus on our values as a business as we go through that process as well. Almost more so than their kind of technical capability, because we want to make sure we're hiring the right person, as opposed to just somebody who can bill.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Yeah. No, they have to fit in with the team, and that's absolutely crucial. As far as we're concerned, we always do a meeting. In fact, we get them to spend, at least an hour on the shop floor, as it were. Talking about what they do and how they do it, and get their feedback. It's quite interesting because people do put on an interview face when they sit with me or with Pete, who's but when they sit with the team, the mask falls off a little bit, and you get a slightly different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that does seem to work pretty well. But as I say, any hard and fast rule, it's. Whether we can find people who fit, who understand the industry, we want to recruit for half the time, I think, as well. Ben, you seem to have frozen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You're back again. Okay, that's it. And maybe my phone. Okay. Wow, we're good in about 40 minutes. So.
I think we've done our bit there, yeah, Ian. I think we've done all right. So
let them do
right. I think it's interesting that even despite the industry sectors being so different, a lot of the things we've talked about have been the same in terms of, general feeling about how things are improving. It's a combination of the market getting better and our teams kind of shifting a little bit their own focuses from being services to doing that extra bit of kind of client development work. And I think we're all, the same challenges will be there, not just next year, they'll be there in 10 years' time as well.
It's the same cycles you always go through, just slight variants of the same pattern. But
100%, yeah.
For me, I'd always prefer having too many jobs, not enough candidates, to too many candidates, jobs.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Having worked through the credit crunch back in 08, 09, I will 100% agree with you. And I've said that to our team quite a few times, that I know it can be really challenging and it does make it hard work. It makes it really difficult in many senses, but it's a much better place to be, to have more jobs and not many candidates. So in one respect, long may that continue. So
I hope so. All right. Well,
cool.
I'll see you in the meeting next time.
Yeah. All the best, Ian. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.